Yeah, dictator of Somalia. It's, to me, one of the scariest stories that I found in their archives. I was able to recreate this because they've dumped 600 boxes of papers in the Billy Graham archives. Siad Barre was had not a likely candidate for Christian right recruitment, called himself a Quranic Marxist. But in the early 80s, the Soviets had abandoned him. There'd been a power shift between Somalia and Ethiopia. He was in the market for a new patron. And working through Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, of course, still in office.
Talk more about Chuck Grassley, who certainly is in the news now, who together with Max Baucus heads the Senate Finance Committee. Baucus, Democrat, Grassley, Republican, very powerful figure, especially around health care right now.
Indeed. And Grassley's been involved with the organization for quite some time, since the 80s, when he traveled to Somalia to join Siad Barre, in prayer to Jesus, and he brought with him a defense contractor named Bill Brem. And Barre was a kind of a cynical character, as you might expect for a dictator. He was very clear. He says, I'm willing to pray to Jesus, and here's what I want in return. He says, I want my defense budget doubled. He says, I want meetings for my officials with the Reagan White House, and I want a sort of a hands-off policy while I crack down on some rebels. Doug Coe, the leader of the group, wrote back, in essence, done, done, and done. And when we look at history, so it was. And Barre used those weapons supplied to him, in part by the U.S., to wage a war of almost biblical proportion on his own people, from which Somalia has not recovered to this day. The family doesn't consider that a failure. They consider that God's will for Somalia.
And more about Grassley. And